Welcome everyone to another week of Ramban on HaTorah. We're still in a struggle with our enemies, and our learning should be zchus for the hostages and refuah shlema for the people who have been injured, and really zchus for us to win a decisive victory, as we need very, very much. Okay, today, if there's a theme in today's Rambans, I would say it's the theme of the Ramban sort of closing his eyes and imagining what he's seeing, and imagining relationships, and imagining full-blown relationships, not just, Avram was a tzaddik and Sara was a tzaddikes, and so they built a bayis nem on Yisrael. It's all true. But the Ramban sees it much more nuanced, and he sees the people themselves. And for an example, if we start with the first Ramban on the pasuk, so the parsha says, "Vayu Chayei Sara me'ah shana ve'asrim shana ve'sheva shanim shnei Chayei Sara, v'tamos Sara b'kiryas arba hi Chevron be'eretz Canaan, va'yavo Avraham lispod l'Sara v'liv kota." And all the Rishonim want to know, va'yavo Avraham, where did he come from? Okay, so it's an interesting question, and it's a fair question, and it has somewhat to do with the Akedah and how you view the Akedah. But everything the Ramban is about to say stems from the following postulate. And that is that Avram and Sara had a real marriage and a real life together. And it's inconceivable that Avraham lived in, in Gerar, lived someplace down south, and Sara lived in Hebron. Of course they lived together, like all married people. Says the Ramban. First Rashi, Lashon Rashi. Where did he come from? So Rashi says, Mi Beersheva. Ve'ein ze lomar. So first of all, why would Rashi say Beersheva? So the answer is because after the Akedah, it depends on how you see the relationship between the Akedah and the death of Sara. But for Rashi, that saw the Akedah as being the cause of Sara's death, Vayashav Avraham el Ne'arav, Vayakumu vayalchu yachtav el Beersheva, Vayeshev Avraham be'Beersheva. So the end of the Akedah makes it clear Avram lived in Beersheva, and Avram returned to Beersheva. And so if Sara died and Avram came to Hebron, apparently he came from Beersheva. But the Ramban won't hear it. Ve'ein ze lomar shaya omed sham mima shekatuv vayeshev Avram be'Beersheva. It can't be that means that Avram lived there. Ki eich tiyeh Sara b'Chevron. Right? How could it be that Avram lived in Beersheva and Sara lived in Hebron? So in theory, you could say, well, of course it could be. They lived in separate places. So the Ramban, it's impossible, right? We've seen this before. It's impossible. They had a deep, loving relationship. They cared about each other. They did things together. Can't be. So says the Ramban, Aval hakavana lomar shalach sham biyom litzarko. If you want to accept Rashi's approach, okay, Avram had some business meeting in Beersheva. Vishama b'mitat Sara, he was there and he heard about Sara's death. Uva misham lispod avaliv kota. Okay, and then he returned from there to mourn Sara. V'lashon rabotenu mehar hamoriaba. Right, that's the medrash, that after the Akedah he returned to Beersheva. V'chein haya lefi hamedrash shekatuv harav ki shama'a ba'akedah uparcha nishmata. Obviously, according to the medrash, that the cause of Sara's death was hearing about the Akedah. So this makes complete sense. V'hanireh ba'akedah shahayta hatzava'a ba b'Beersheva. Says the Ramban, and it's an interesting thing in the Ramban. The Ramban wrote most of his parish in Spain. At the age of 71, when the Ramban became the first Jew ever to be exiled to Israel, so he saw a lot of the geography, and he made changes to his parish. And I think this is one of the changes that he made. Now he's in Eretz Yisrael. He says as follows. Of course, Avraham was in Beersheva when God told him to take Yitzchak and to Shechem. He wasn't in Hebron. Why not? Okay. Ki kain katuv b'tchila vayita isha b'Beersheva vayikasham b'shem Hashem keilolam va'amar vayagar Avraham be'eretz plishtim yamim rabim v'hu geiruto b'Beersheva shu be'eretz plishtim v'sham nitztava ba'akedah. Va'al kain shahab b'derech shlosha yamim she'eretz plishtim rechaka miyushalayim. Says the Ramban, I'm here now. If you take the highway from Yerushalayim to Beersheva, so when you leave Yerushalayim, the sign says 80 kilometers. How much does it take? How long does it take to travel?
So historians think that on a donkey, in regular conditions, you could do 30 kilometers a day. Okay? So obviously, Beersheba, it's 10 kilometers from outside Yerushalayim. It's almost exactly 90 kilometers to the Makom HaMikdash. Says the Ramban, that's a 3-day journey. Hebron's not a 3-day journey. Hebron isn't even, maybe it's 30 kilometers. I don't even think Hebron is 30 kilometers from Yerushalayim. It wouldn't take him 3 days. So the Ramban now's in Eretz Yisrael. He sees the land and he says, he must have been in Beersheba when God appeared to him. Visham nitztava ba'akedah, va'al kein shah b'derech shel shayimim, sheretz plishim michalkam Yerushalayim. Shilu Hebron b'har Yehuda haya, v'karov liYerushalayim. Okay, so then, uvishuvo min ha'akedah leBeersheba chazar. Now, it's a bit problematic, right? He had to go back to Beersheba. Why? Because that's what the pasuk says. Vayashav Avram leBeersheba. But to do so, the way a map looks, it's Yerushalayim, Hebron, Beersheba. He would have to go all the way past Hebron back to Beersheba. So that supports the Ramban's idea that it's true that Avram lived in Beersheba at the time, and that the death of Sara had nothing to do with the Akedah. It happened years later. Years later, they moved from Beersheba, both of them together. They moved from Beersheba to Hebron. And that's where Sara died, in Kiryat Arba, Hebron, and that's where Sara died. But the Akedah was a 3-day journey from Beersheba to the place. Now, I should point out to you that the Ramban does recognize, and it's possible also, Rashi also probably knew that Hebron was too close. Says the Ramban, it's possible that God told Abraham about the Akedah in Hebron, but he didn't tell him where. And so Abraham, traveled to Yerushalayim, and he kept walking around, and he kept searching El HaMakom Asher Amaro Elokim, to the place where the Akedah was supposed to take place, but God didn't tell him where, and that's what took 3 days. Okay, another possibility, but the Ramban is not a big fan of that approach. Next approach. Aval, achar yamim rabim nasa me'eretz plishtim uval lechavron v'niftara shama tzadeket. Okay, he thinks the truth is they lived in Beersheba. After they lived in Beersheba, they moved back to Hebron, and that's where Sara died, unrelated to the Akedah. Aval lefi hamedrash tzrichim anu lomar ki Avraham v'Sara bizman ha'akedah hayu darim b'Chevron v'sham nitztava. But according to the Medrash, which the Ramban wants to give respect to, no, they lived in Hebron. Uma shama bayom hashishi, as I just said, vayisav ramesainov, right? Vayar bayom hashlishi, ki lo nigla lo hahar chamed elokim ad yom hashlishi. God didn't tell him where to go. He forced him to walk around. Vayah b'shnei hayamim holech b'svivei Yerushalayim, v'lo haya haratzon laharot lo. Okay? Va'avraham achar ha'akedah lo shav limkamo lechevron, ela halach tihilal el Beersheba makom ha'eshel shalo, latet hoda'a al niso v'sham shama b'mitat sarova. Okay, so if you want to say that the Medrash is right, says the Ramban, okay, they lived in Hebron. It took him 3 days because God didn't give him directions and his ways didn't work, and he wasn't sure where it was supposed to take place. Afterwards, Avram bypassed Hebron, went all the way to Beersheba, because that was like a holy place for him. That's where he built his Eshel. That's where Vayikra b'Shem Hashem. And then Sara died and he returned to her. Okay. Now the Ramban says, okay, those are all the interesting mefarshim. But now the Ramban says, I have to tell you what I think the simple pshat in the pasuk is. And it's staggeringly original. V'zedad kol ha-mefarshim ki Avraham haya b'makom acher uba misham. Right, that's what everybody says. But says the Ramban, ulefi da'ati ki haya lis-Sara ohel sham omedet. Sarah had her own tent. V'am hotav lefanan, our own servants. V'chein katuv ba'ol Yaakov v'ol Leo v'ol shtei amahot. When Lavan is looking for the trafim that Rachel stole, he goes to the Oel Yaakov and Oel Rivka and Oel Rachel, Oel Leah, etc. They all had their own tents. V'hinei Sara meta ba'oel asher la v'nichnas Avraham. When it says Vayavo Avraham, it just means Avraham came from his own tent to Sarah's tent. V'nichnas Avraham ba'oel im achuzat me'erav lisporota. Okay, it's as simple as that. Vayavo doesn't mean he came from another place. it means he came from 50 feet away. He came from 100, that's where he lived. Another possibility, O sheyihiyeh lashon vayavo le'mor shenit orer Avraham lehesped hazeh v'yitchil la'asoto. Or vayavo simply means he prepared himself to give a hesped for Sarah. Ki kol mit orer u'matchil b'melacha yikra ba'elel. Right? In the Torah, ba'elel means I've prepared, I'm coming to do something. What's he coming to do? He's coming to give a hesped. Okay? So again, the main point I want to make in this Ramban is that the Ramban is unwilling to imagine a world in which Sarah and Avraham do not live in the same place because they're really married. Okay? What does he really think? He thinks either Avraham lived in Beersheba, that's a 3-day journey to Yerushalayim, that's where God appeared to him, and that's why he returned to Beersheba. And after that, years later, Sara dies when they move back to Hebron. Right? That's one possibility. The better possibility, says the Ramban, is it doesn't mean anything about coming from far away. Vayavo Avraham simply means he was in his own tent. He heard that Sara died. He then went to Sarah's tent. And Vayavo either means he came or he prepared to give a hesped. Okay? That's the first Ramban. The second Ramban is the beginning of the story of Avraham sending Eliezer. It's the longest story. I think it's the longest parak in the Torah, 67 psukim. Avraham sending Eliezer to find a wife for Rivka. To find a wife for Eliezer. Okay? And what's interesting there is the whole introduction. Says the pasuk there, Parak Chavdal pasuk Aleph, Va'avraham zakein ba bayamim, va'Hashem beirachet Avraham bakol. It's a whole discussion in Rishonim bakol. It was a ben, it was a bat, it was a gift for him that he didn't have a daughter because who would she marry, right? Interesting ideas. But the Ramban doesn't want to talk about that first. First he says, why would Avraham go and make Eliezer do this? Why would he not do it himself? Chazara katuv lemor came. Lahodia hasiba sheba avura hishpia et avdo. Why did he choose Eliezer to tell? V'amar. Ki ra'a atzmo zakein ma'od. He saw Avram zakein babayim, and he was getting old. V'chashav belibo shemishlach la'aretz moladato. If he sends a stam shaliach to the land he grew up in, ulai term yachzor shaliach yelech lo al beit olamo, he'll die. And then what will happen? V'lachein hishpia et avdo asher yelech yitzchak achar atzato. He didn't pick some unnamed servant. He picked Eliezer, somebody Yitzchak knew, and somebody Yitzchak would respect, and somebody Yitzchak would understand is doing what his father wanted. Ki hu ha-moshel b'chol asher lo shelo yikach lo isha mibnot Canaan. Right? It's not just anybody. He picked the person who Yitzchak grew up with, who ran Avraham's home. So therefore, if something happened to Avraham, Yitzchak, who the Ramban assumes knew that Avram was sending Eliezer to find him a wife, would listen to Eliezer and marry the woman who he brought back. Okay, that's the first ha'ar the Ramban has. It's an interesting one. Next, V'Hashem beirachat Avraham bakol. What does it mean bakol? So the Ramban says simple pshat. Ba'osher unechasim v'chavod orech yamim uvanim. It means exactly what we would think. Wealth and a long life and children. V'zod kol chemdat ha'adam. What else could a person want? V'hizkir ha'katuv ze lomar ki haya shalem bakol. Lo chaser davar zulati sheyireh banim livno sheyinchalu ma'alato ukvodo v'lachein hitav elazeh. Right? The Torah tells us Avraham had everything, including a boy. But he didn't have a grandson. He didn't have a continuation. His continuation was still in doubt. So at the end of his life, when he's zakein ba bayamim, of course that's what he wants. And so he sends Eliezer, and that's the explanation for the whole story. Okay? Good. Third Ramban. Although here too, I think you see, it's interesting, I should just mention this. I mentioned before that the Rashi talks about Ben, Bigamatra being Bakol, Bigamatra being Ben, and somebody else saying it means he had a bat and her name was Bakol. The Ramban doesn't need any of that, and he sort of rejects it. But I should admit to you that the Ramban then says, Acharim chidshu b'perush hakatuv hazeh inyan amok ma'od, v'darshu b'zeh sod misodot HaTorah. Right? All these ideas of Bakol having another meaning, the Ramban says, it's a very, very deep idea. And sometimes I think, there's sort of marginally Kabbalistic ideas in the Ramban that I think people like us have access to. This, I think we have no access to, and we're not going to do it. You should know the Ramban thinks there's a deep, deep explanation for Hashem Berachat Avraham Bakol, but he thinks the Pshat explanation is what we said, which is literally Avraham had everything except for a continuation, a child, a wife, and a child for Yitzchak. Therefore, that's the explanation for why he sent Eliezer. Okay, third Ramban. This, again, speaks to human emotions and the Ramban seeing people as real and not just, as I mentioned before, not just sort of 2D people. Okay? Says the Pasuk at the very, very end of the story of Eliezer bringing back a wife for Yitzchak, the Torah says, he told him the story, Vayiviyeh Yitzchak ha'ohel Sara imo. Yitzchak brought her to the tent of Sara. Vayikach et Rivka, vatihi lo liisha vayeh haveha. It's interesting, the Ramban is going to comment on why vayeh haveha. Vayinachen Yitzchak achare imo. That's wholly unnecessary. He was consoled for his mother. So the Ramban is going to deal with all of this. Vayiviyeh Yitzchak ha'ohel Sara imo. Says the Ramban, Vitam hakatuv, ki yisaper b'kavod shenahag Yitzchak b'imo. The Torah is telling us indirectly the incredible respect that Yitzchak Avinu had for his mother Sara. Ki me'et shemeta Sara, from the time that Sara died, lo natu ohala. They didn't pitch her tent. Meaning, two things are going on here. First, they sort of, they retired Sarah's tent. Nobody else was going to live in it. But the second idea you get is that at this point, Yitzchak was in charge. Avram was still alive. But he attributes to Yitzchak this idea that they didn't pitch Sarah's tent. Ki amru, lo tavo isha acheret elo al hagvira hanichbedet. Right? No one else, no other woman, even if Avram's going to remarry, no other woman is going to live in the tent of the saintly Sarah. Right? In some bizarre way, lahavdil elef alfi avdalos, when they retire a jersey for somebody. Okay, nobody's going to wear that jersey. No one's going to be good at that as that player. They retired Sarah's tent. V'kasher ra'a Rivka, but when Yitzchak met Rivka, hevia el oel hahu lichvoda, right? He brought her. He pitched his mother's tent again, and he brought her to that tent. V'sham lekacha. And that's where he had relations with her. V'zeh ta'am vaye'ehaveha. Says the Ramban, it's such a strange, why does the Torah say, I'm putting words in the Ramban's mouth, but I think this is really pshat. Why does the Torah say vaye'ehaveha? The Ramban thinks, of course he loved her. She was his wife. They had real marriages. They had real relationships. The avos, were human beings also. They were great, but they are human beings. Why would the Torah have to tell me Vayehaveha? And the answer is because of the next word, Vayinachen. He was consoled. Yirmoz shehayam mitzta'er ma'od al imo v'rachak mimenu menachem. The Ramban says Yitzchak loved his mother. Now again, without trying to be too psychological, Yitzchak's father tried to kill him. Now he didn't, and the Akedah had some impact, presumably, on the relationship between Yitzchak and Avraham. But Sara was always supportive of Yitzchak. Sara was the one who kicked out Yishmael. Sara was the one who saw Yitzchak as the continuation of Avraham. And apparently Yitzchak loved her deeply because of that and mourned her deeply. He had no consolation. Ad shenichem beishto be'ahavato ota. Till he really loved Rivka. And the love for Rivka, as awkward as it sounds, replaced the love that he had for his mother. Right? We wouldn't want to talk that way because it sounds funny. But the Ramban's not afraid to talk that way. He loved his mother. He had no place and no way to express that love going forward. Then he met Rivka. And she reminded him of his mother. And loving his wife replaced the love that he had for his mother. Why else would the Torah mention vayehaveha. They were married. Of course he loved her. So the Ramban is saying no. The Torah tells you that he loved her, therefore vayinachem Yitzchak acharei imo. It wasn't just a coincidence. Had he not loved his wife, he would not have been consoled over his mother. But because he did, he was consoled over his mother. Next point. V'onkelus pireish vayivia Yitzchak ohela v'hinei hi Sara imo. She became Sara. V'lachein hizkir ha'ahava ki mipnei tzidkata v'chishron ma'aseha ohava v'nichem ba. Right? He saw her greatness, and because of that, he fell in love with her, and he was consoled through her. V'chein hizkir b'reishis rabbah ad shalom meita Sara hayta bracha mitzuya b'isa. Right? We all learned this medrash when we were little kids. And I think Rashi quotes it, right? When Sara was alive, there were 3 miracles that happened continuously. There was a ner daluk, there was a candle that burned all the time. There was an anan kashur al ha'ohel, right? There was a cloud over the tent, marking it as a makom ashchina. And there was bracha mitzuya bi'isa. And the dough had a blessing in it, meaning they had little dough, and much more challah than you would have expected grew out of that little bit of dough. Those are 3 brachot. And when Rivka returned to the tent of Sarah, all of these things happened. Okay? The ner was dolek, the anan was kashur, and the bracha was mitzuya bi'isa. Okay? Unrelated. There's a famous legend in our yeshiva that when they decided to build the yeshiva in the place that is in Alon Shvutz, Rav Amital, saw from a distance, and he asked somebody, what do you see? And the person said, I don't see anything. And Rav Amital said, B'zeh halashon, ani roeh anan kashur al hahar. Right? That's the place for the yeshiva. There's a cloud there signifying, okay, anyway, that's the pshat in Onkelos. So the Ramban thinks that, Yitzchak deeply loved his wife, and that's why he was consoled for his mother. Last Ramban, very end of the parsha, a small but a really meaningful one. It's Perek Chayei, Pasuk Chet. Says the Pasuk, Vayigva vayamat Avraham b'seiva tova zakein v'saveya vayasef alamav. It's interesting, like Avraham doesn't get the big send-off, right? Chayei Sara is Sarah's death. At the end of Chayei Sara, Avraham dies. He dies b'seiva tova zakein v'saveya. What does that mean? So says the Ramban, zakein v'saveya shera'a kol mishalot libo v'sava kol tova. He saw all of his dreams fulfilled, and he was literally satiated with days. V'chein usfa yamim shesava nafsho biyamim. He was full of his days. V'lo yit aveh sheyichadshu bo hayamim davar. When Avraham sat, on his lazy boy, at the end of the day, he wasn't missing anything. He didn't think to himself, oh, I wish X, I wish Y, I wish I had another yacht, I wish something else would happen. No. Everything of value that he had wanted came true. Ukinyan shenamar b'David vayamat b'seiva tova savea sva yamim va'osha v'chavod v'hu sipur chastei Hashem batzadikim. Right? What a gift! What a great gift! So that a person who leaves this world is not missing anything. He just looks back and he feels proud of himself for his accomplishments. He feels proud of himself for the family that he raised. He feels all these things is what Avraham felt. Shelo, now why is it? V'hu sipur chastei Hashem batzadikim umidat tova bahem. What is the great thing that God does for tzadikim? Shelo yitavu b'moterot. They don't desire excess things. It's not that they're okay with a piece of bread and a cup of water. No. But what God gave them is exactly what they wanted. As opposed to kinyan shenamar bahem tavat libo natatalo. You gave him exactly what he desired. V'lo kimo shene'amar b'shar ha'anashim ohev kesef lo yispa kesef. Right? This is something I used to see often as a lawyer. Right? A person, makes $500,000 a year. He wants $1 million. He makes $1 million. He wants $2 million. He makes 2. He wants 4. It's unfortunately It's human nature. Maybe it's how God made us, but God didn't make tzaddikim that way. The idea that you could say at some point in your life, my house is big enough, I make enough money, I can give tzedakah, I can support my family, I'm genuinely grateful for that, as opposed to what we often see, which is however much money you have another opportunity and you invest it in and it can go south. You don't do, says the Ramban, tzaddikim don't do that. Va'amrubo, and therefore about most people it said, Ein adam yotzei min ha'olam v'chatzi ta'avotav biyado. Right? If you have unlimited desire, then sadly, your desire will never be fulfilled. In fact, says the Ramban, the quote is, even half your desire won't be fulfilled. Yesh biyado maneh mitaveh matayim. Hisiga yado lematayim mitaveh la'asoto arba meot. You always want more. You can't be stopped. Shnemar, ohev kesef, lo yispa kesef. If you love money, you'll never have enough money. Okay, that's a really, really important point. It's not just that Avraham got everything he desired. It's that he didn't desire everything. He desired the things that he needed. He desired the things that mattered to him. He didn't desire a bigger yacht. Another pshat. The Medrash says that when a tzaddik is about to die, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mareh lahem letzadikim matan scharan, shehu atid litein lahem la'olam haba, v'nafsham siveya v'hem yishenim. The other pshat is when a tzaddik is about to die, HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows him what his reward's going to be in olam haba, and he feels good about himself, and he leaves this world with a feeling of goodness. So we saw 4 Rambans today. The theme, I think, of the Rambans that we saw today is the Ramban sees the Avos, sees Avraham and Sara, not just as tzaddikim, but as real people in that they had a real marriage and they lived together, real people in that Vashem Berachat Avraham Bakol, it means real things, real values, real possessions. Yitzchak loved Sara, and that's why he was consoled for his mother. And finally, the last idea is Zakenu Svayamim, the same thing. That Avram was a tzaddik, and Avram was happy and fulfilled and satisfied with his own accomplishments and with his own possessions. And unlike Rishaim, and it's such a curse, meaning, if kesef lo yispa kesef, you'll never be happy. There'll never be enough money. There's always somebody in the world who has more money than you, and maybe this means you're jealous of them. But to be a tzaddik, says the Ramban, is to not want moterot. I have enough. I'm comfortable with what I have, and therefore I'm a happy person, and therefore I feel proud of my life. Okay, that's it for today. Yashkach to everybody. Shabbat shalom, and see you next week.